Have you ever had one of those moments where you have to be brutally honest with yourself because you know that if you don't listen to that gut feeling that you have, you're going to end up going down a path that makes you ultimately not that happy? For me, I had one of those moments kind of slap me upside the head when I was 22 years old. And I was just finishing my student teaching, about to graduate college and go get my own classroom after 5 years in college. Over 200 credits, multiple student teaching placements, and something inside of me was telling me that this wasn't where I actually wanted to build my career. And it was such a hard decision for me to make that at the time I went and talked to my fiance, who's now my husband. And I look back at my career, and there's kind of three key moments where he stepped into the role of my guide. So, when you read a book or watch a movie, a lot of times the hero will have a guide like Dumbledore or Mr. Miyagi or Rafiki from The Lion King. Well, James is my Rafiki. And while I was having these feelings of, oh no, did I choose the wrong career? He helped me recognize that I was always going to have my teaching certification to go back to, but maybe I could try something different and see how that fit before I really started building my career in the education space. And so thankfully, I had a role that came about that was going to allow me to go into a corporate training role, which felt like a huge stray away from what I was thinking I was going to be doing, but close enough where I could very easily see how my skill sets would transfer. And so I decided to go into the corporate world. And as I was in that role for the first couple of years, I got a little bit of the business bug, so to speak. And I recognized that going back to the traditional classroom wasn't going to be the right fit. And I was able to kind of pinpoint the parts of teaching that I really loved because people had always pushed me in that direction because I enjoyed learning and enjoyed explaining things to other people. I never stopped talking and I liked kids. But what I realized was I still enjoyed learning, I still enjoyed teaching, but I liked just working with people. So I got to go from teaching little people to teaching big people, and I enjoyed that work. But where I was at and building my career there still didn't fully feel like the right fit. So at this point, James and I are now married. It's my very first official Thanksgiving as a roll-off, and I am trying to decide what types of roles I want to apply for, where I want to take my career. And this is moment number 2 where Mr. Miyagi James comes to the table. And I get to talk about this one as an intervention. I'm half convinced that James had a pre-meeting before this conversation at Thanksgiving. But I was sitting down with my husband, his father, and his uncle talking about what I should consider and where I should go. And again, it felt like the three of them had had a conversation before they sat down with me. And they said, where you should really take your career is you should go into sales. And I immediately had a feeling.
Gross.
I did not want to be a salesperson, even though my husband and his father had both built their careers in that direction. And I knew better than to think all salespeople are kind of like used car salespeople. But the idea of asking someone for money or trying to convince them to do something that they didn't want to do, or cold calling people, felt so outside of what I wanted to do with my life that it was almost an immediate no for me. But James made a statement that 10 years later still lives rent-free in my mind. And he told me that the best salespeople are teachers. And that if I found a company I believed in and a product I was excited about, I wouldn't have to sell anything. I could just focus on helping teach people how I was going to solve their problems. And that perspective shift was enough for me to take a chance and decide to do the thing that every good wife does and kind of listen to her husband. And I applied to one sales job. And it was because I was pretty sure that no one was going to hire me for a job that I was grossly underqualified for. But during this process, I applied to one job that was focused in the process automation space and reselling software. And my husband told me again, kind of that wisdom coming through, what's the worst that happens? They don't hire you. That's okay. And so I put in my application meeting one of the qualifications on the job description. And that was that I had a 4-year college degree, and sent it off expecting for nothing to come out of it. But all of the pieces in my mind came together when I was on site for my interview, meeting with the leadership of the company for the first time. And it was then that I realized the COO of that company had worked for IBM in the early days of technology. And back then, they couldn't recruit people with IT backgrounds or people that had studied technology in college. What they did is they went to college campuses and they recruited teachers to come be on their sales team so that they could teach people about the technology that they were going to be bringing into the organization. And so that one qualification that I met was a 4-year college degree in education. And she saw that and she made the connection back to what she had seen in her early days at IBM and was willing to give me a shot. And so the stars had aligned. I found myself in my first sales position. And I leaned into what James had told me, that the best salespeople were teachers. So I did things like webinars and writing blog posts to break down acronyms and teach people about my industry. I was on site anytime a customer would allow it, doing a lunch and learn or helping their team learn about the art of the possible with technology. And that served me super well for about the first 5 years that I was in sales. And I had worked my way up to be on our enterprise team. I was working with large companies, had the opportunities that I was looking for to be strategic and consultative in my sales. And it was wonderful. And then COVID hit. And myself, along with everybody else in the world, had to come to this like pivotal moment that all of the tools that we had been using disappeared like that. And I was going to have to figure out a new way to get in front of my clients and my prospects. And this is moment number 3 of James filling the role of my Dumbledore.
It's true, Harry.
And we were sitting in our kitchen with what I call out in the wild, with our kids in the living room watching Frozen 2 and us kind of trying to have a hushed conversation about what was going on in the world. And I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how I was going to meet this big quota that I had in front of me, when every time I did a cold call, I got a full voicemail box because no one was forwarding their voicemails. I was holding webinars that no one was coming to because everyone and their mom was holding a COVID response webinar, and everyone was burnt out on that idea. And so I was desperately trying to think about, how do I get back in front of people, and how do I do this in this world where no one knows what the answers are? And James said to me, well, why don't you try making video?
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
And again, being the good wife I am, my initial reaction was like, does anybody watch video on technology and technology implementations and digital transformation? And his response boomeranged again to, well, what's the worst that happens? No one watches it and you stop doing it. So I took his advice and I created a video. Hi there, my name is Emma Roloff, and I got some people that watched it. So I made another one, and then I started an interview series. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. And then that interview series got me connections to people that had podcasts that wanted to position me as the expert and give me the chance to sit down and share what I had learned in my career. And as the content started to kind of snowball and build, the connection requests with people that were ideal customers started to come. I started to get DMs from people that were looking for my advice on how to solve problems. And I started to build this trust and authority at a different level at scale than I had ever been able to do in the past. And one of the things that surprised me the most is that through this process, I got better at my job because I was constantly creating content that helped answer questions and teach people about my industry. I got better when I was on a call with a customer. Once COVID ended and I got the chance to be in front of people again, I was better and more confident in those scenarios because of what I had been able to build online. The questions that I got, the ways that I was able to start thinking through things differently, all came in to my role and made me better at what I do. And I started to have more inbound opportunities come towards me. I wasn't chasing people to try and solve their problems. They were coming to me with those problems and giving me the opportunity to talk with them about it because they trusted me and my opinion. And after a number of years of both James and I utilizing these tools in our own sales cycles and our own roles, we got to the point where we realized this is something that other people need to be taking advantage of, because the way that people buy was changing before COVID, but has completely changed since then. People don't want to be sold to, they want to buy, and they want to work with people that are going to help them build the expertise that they need to make the right decision. And so we decided to take what we had been informally working at from all the way back 10 years ago during that first conversations that got me into sales and turn it into a framework that would help other people take advantage of what we had learned. And so now at Roloff Consulting, we help our customers through advisory and strategy work, implementing our favorite teacher framework. And then we have our Catalyst community where we help individuals that are interested in tapping into that framework in a group coaching program. And the favorite teacher framework is easy to understand and easy to adopt because it focuses on putting your expertise in the center and teaching people what you've learned throughout your career. So at the top of the favorite teacher framework funnel is educational content. And that's helping your buyers make the right decisions, answering their questions, teaching them things that are going to ultimately make them confident that you're the right person to work with them. And then you strategically connect with the right people through online resources that add further value, through webinars or other points of connection where you're able to take someone from a passive learner and bring them down into your sales funnel, into the prospect space. And once you have them engaged as a prospect and you've been adding value along the way, you get the opportunity to take that true consultative approach to the sale because you've built the authority to be able to guide them through their buying decision. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how to kind of take that icky feeling out of sales or stop chasing sales and have people come to you, check out the rest of the content on our YouTube channel to learn a little bit more about the favorite teacher framework and how we help our clients, or reach out to us to talk about the Catalyst community or our advisory services.